New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here today. Here at the Growing Edge, we have conversations with soul-centered individuals that channel their time, their talent, their energy, their resources, their love into doing good work in the world. And all of my guests, without exception, are doing just that. They're helping individuals to connect with themselves, their lives, and to create a beautiful world for themselves. So these individuals are doing such good work in the world. And today I have a good friend of mine. Her name's Mary Hampton. And Mary is a life coach, business coach, accountability coach, a results coach, and the founder of the Hampton Agency. She is the creator, owner, leader, and she is a serial entrepreneur. I love that. Mary coaches many business owners to build, brand, and grow their businesses, as well as doing life coaching. So, Mary, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to have you on the show as a guest. We met a few years ago as we were both in a training together, the Enneagram, with our beloved mentor and teacher, Linda Frazee. Yeah. And I really got to know you. We had a deep dive. We would not only be on do work together online, but every quarter we would get together in either Phoenix or Denver and spend several days together, really diving into the Enneagram and so much more.
So much more.
So much more, yeah. And we had a good time doing it. And when I was looking at your website, I was seeing the word joy on there. And I know you and the work that you're doing, really, that is a big underscore, joy. There's joy threaded through everything that you do.
Yes, 100%. I think life is super good, and that if you live that way, it gets better and better. And as soon as you take the turn that life isn't so good and it's hard, it becomes way, way, way harder. And so, you always have to kind of catch yourself, but that is definitely part of my life is joy for sure.
Yeah, and I think when you have that intention and when you're as clear as you are, you just stated, making sure that there's that intention of joy or whatever your intention is where you're focused on and what people experience when they work with you. And there's a picture of your website right there. Thank you, Michael, producer. And for those that aren't viewing but are actually listening, it's the hamptonagency.com. And that's where you can find Mary and all the work that she does. So I know you, but my guests don't. So why don't we get to know you a little bit more and hear about your origin story? Where were you born? What was that like? Because we know that the work we end up doing as adults starts much earlier on, right? So where were you born?
So I was born in Southern California. I'm the baby of 6. So I came from a very large family. I grew up Mormon. And so lived in a really strong LDS family and really gave me a solid foundation as what I knew, who I was, all of that. it's always interesting when you grow up in something so strong. You either really buck the system or you embrace it. It's kind of one or the other. And so I was really in it. I really loved where I came from and who I was. And it just was innately embedded into everything we did.
And we found out that you were actually living in Southern California, very close to where I was living in Big Bear Lake.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was one of those coincidental
I
things.
know. Yeah. I love it. We were following each other.
Right. And now I live with all the Mormons in Utah, and you live in Arizona, which
And my daughter lives in Utah, so she's right by you. So it's funny.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of that complete circle here.
Yeah.
So
I moved to Arizona about 10 years ago. So I've been in Arizona the last 10 years in Scottsdale.
So you mentioned the Mormon Church, and I know it's such a all-encompassing lifestyle. It's more than just a religion. It's a way of life. It's a absolute way of being, and such a structure of support for the members.
Yes.
I know, here I can see a church from here out the window, and I know there's one in every so people can walk, so there's not necessarily a need to drive. And so it's really such a strong system of family first. And so what were some of the things that supported you as a child, being in such a loving, nurturing, supportive faith and community?
Yeah. Looking back, it's really interesting. My parents are very, very family oriented. My dad was just a love and would give the shirt off his back to anybody that needed it. My mom really encompassed service and giving. Interesting enough, more so to anybody in need than even in like the family unit. It was really just so interesting. We did for others. And one of the big things that my parents taught us, and I think all of my brothers and sisters across the board are relatively the same this way, is that we were taught to be happy for others' success. And it can make me really emotional right away in thinking about that, because so many people aren't, and you don't know how aren't they are until you're kind of removed out of that family unit. And it's one thing that we never really kept up with the Joneses and tried to be more than within our means and all of that. But if the neighbor got a new car, I can remember vividly that my parents offered congratulations and were genuinely happy for their success. And that is in me, that it's not going away. It's not something that I've ever struggled with or had jealousy or this envy of the grass is greener, the neighbor has this, why don't I have that? It's something that I just have never really struggled with. And I am so grateful that was taught so early on, because that is something that is a real struggle within humanity, and something that I see. And when I'm coaching, I see that a lot. Why don't I have that? A poor me mentality a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's really clear for me, that it just grew up different.
Yeah, it's such a good habit to have. And I think that trait, being able to really celebrate other people's wins and successes and strengths and talents and all of that, is such a core component to being a successful coach.
Yeah, and human, successful in life. I mean, it's way easier to be happy for somebody and to celebrate the wins. And it gives you such an abundance. I didn't realize, I think young, but it gives you such an abundance mindset, that there's enough for everyone, and that there's tons and tons and tons of money and joy and things, that even if somebody has it next to you, you can have it too. Like it's very clear that way, so that the abundance mindset shows up in that way.
Yeah, the glass half full rather than half empty.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that you can have whatever it is that you want is really an interesting concept. I mean, most people think it's out there to get and that you have to really like strive and work and strive and work, but it's really all around us,
Mhm.
the things that we want or that mindset for sure.
So you mentioned you're the baby of the family.
Hmm.
How was that? How did being the baby of the family influence you? And when I think of this, I'm also thinking of the type in the Enneagram that you lead with. And so how have you ever considered that or explored that,
Oh,
being
for
the
sure.
baby and then being the type you are? And would you share with us what type
Yeah,
you are?
of course. So I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, massive protector. And the notion of being the baby, it's really interesting, being the baby of 6. My parents were incredible parents. They did a great job. But if you can imagine having 6 kids, by the time I came around, they were tired. They were wrapped up doing the whole parenting thing. And so I was vastly independent, very, very young.
Mm,
And can can recall really being on my own most of that, even though they were around and all of that. They were just doing the best they could, and they were making it and barely making it and just trying to get through work days like we all do and all of that. So I felt a little lost in the shuffle for sure, and became a real big voice. Like being an 8, I wasn't going to be not heard. And so I just showed up really strong and very assertive and everywhere else in my life. So it's kind of interesting because I wasn't that way essentially in the family until I moved away. And
mm,
so I really wanted my family to be proud of me and see me and not necessarily have their thumb over me going, oh, she's the baby. Oh, she's the baby. I have very highly successful brothers and sisters. And so to keep up with that, being as young as I was, there was a 13-year age gap between the oldest and me. And so as I got older and got older and got older, that gap became really prominent in some regard. And so moving to Arizona really let me do me. And I became very clear of who I am and what I stand for and what I wanted in my life. And I only really wanted to prove it to myself, but it gave like this room of freedom to try it or to do it or to not have some opinion. All of my brothers and sisters, we all have that same very strong opinions. So there wasn't room to have your own a lot of times. And so that was something that even just that slight move, it's only a few hours away, really helped me. I went from 0 to 100 really quickly.
mm. Who influenced you the most in your family? Parents, siblings?
I would say my dad. My dad owned a swimming pool construction company my life. And so watching him work and do his thing, I'm sure was very highly influential. Um, I would say that really set the tone that I wasn't really designed to work for myself or to work for somebody else, that it was definitely I needed to work for myself. I'm pretty unemployable. But yeah, I would say my dad. But both of my parents have incredible work ethic. And so I did learn how to work from both of them in different ways, but definitely, my mom is a very dedicated, by the book, work hard, work sun up to sundown, type of personality, just who she is and how she was raised. And so my work ethic for sure came from both of my parents.
Did you work at a young age?
Very young. So my parents opened a restaurant when I was in junior high school. and I started running their restaurant,
Oh,
7th, 8th grade. Yeah. I mean, really young, doing the hiring, doing the banking, doing all the things, every role. So I learned business really young, and it was my ticket out, which is really interesting. We lived in a really, really small town, 82% welfare, a teeny tiny high school. And I knew that if I worked, I wouldn't have to live there. Like I just hated that town. It was very clear that I didn't want to live there. And at the day I graduated, I mean, I graduated at 11 a.m. and I left at 2 p.m. Like I was ready to go.
Wait, you left the school or you left your
Home.
parents' home? You
I
left
left
home.
home. Yep. Like the day
Wow.
I graduated was the day I moved.
And where did you go?
And I went to La Quinta, to Palm Desert in California still, but just a few hours away. And I went to college there and worked and had a little business. And yeah, it really was great. It was necessary, but I was very, very equipped, thank you to my parents, but ready to go. I knew that that was not where I was going to spend my life or my time. And it was really significant that I needed to go.
So you went to college for what? And what was you mentioned, and started a little business. I mean, that's not a small thing. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was fortunate that my dad had a swimming pool company. And so I did a niche business that wasn't even a thing back in the day, but I would pull all of their permits with the city halls to do swimming pools. And so I would go to all the different city halls that they would be doing pools in and pull all the documentation for the company. And I was their expediter for all of the permitting. And so it was a really niche business. No one did it. It was kind of unheard of, but it was a really great way for me to be in college and work at the same time. And it ended up being very, very lucrative. And I got married really young and had kids really young. And so I would take the kids with me to the cities. And, I mean, it was a really cool time period piece. I hated the work. Like the work itself was not rewarding or fulfilling. It was paperwork.
Well, now,
But,
is this for your dad's company or for people in general?
It was for my dad's company. Yeah. And I did it for 7 years, and it was a really great intro to business. I learned a lot, and I really learned though that it's the vehicle, anything that you choose is your vehicle to get you to that next level or to that step in business, So I didn't wake up at 5 years old and say, oh, I want to be a permit expediter. It wasn't fun. It wasn't rewarding. But it was really a niche business that was so small. And what I learned in that business alone is that niche businesses are so lucrative. That they're not highly saturated. There's not a lot of people in them, and you can do something, for me, love is in the details. And so, you can do something you love within a small little industry and kill it. I mean, I did really well in that business. But also wasn't passion driven at all. Like I didn't know where my impact really was coming. I always knew that I wanted to be in, bigger, greater things, but mostly for impact. And there wasn't that.
So you mentioned you got married and had children. How many children do you have?
So I have 2. So Cambria lives in Utah, is married. She's 23. And then Hunter is 22, and he lives here in Arizona, in Scottsdale.
So you lived in Southern California, and you mentioned you moved to Arizona 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you lived there for quite some time.
Uh-huh.
And what brought you to Arizona?
So this is a funny story. So I actually came with the 2 kids, and we were just on like a little vacation for the weekend. And it was the first time in my life that I had taken the kids on a vacation just with me. And I was so bored out of my mind. I couldn't stand myself. And there was a real estate magazine next to me at the pool, and the kids are swimming, doing their thing. And I saw this cute little house in the real estate magazine and I was like, oh, that's so cute. I'm going to go look at it. And I was like, kids, get out of the pool, go to the room. I'll be back. And they were like, we are not moving here. And I was like, oh gosh, I know. We live in California. No, I came back with keys. Like I knew that we were supposed to move. I didn't want anyone to talk me out of it. And 4 days later, we were in a U-Haul and in Arizona.
Good
It
grief.
was crazy. It really, really was crazy. My house, I put it on the market. I literally didn't know what I was doing. My poor kids were like, are you having a young life crisis? This feels like
Okay, so I want to check in here. So that's huge. I'm reading between the lines here, and I'm imagining you got divorced because you're on your own with the kids at this point.
I
Yeah.
got divorced at 22. So this was a long time
Okay.
after the divorce, but I was
So
married just for 3 years.
So you're a single mom,
Uh-huh.
and you decide out of the blue when your kids are what age? What
They were
age were they?
They were going into junior high school, so 11 and 12.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough time to move them. So what was it that gave you that confidence to make such a bold move so quickly? Now, and I'm kind of leaning into, was this like an intuitive thing? You mentioned being Mormon. Is there a spiritual component to these kinds of decisions?
For sure. So, first in my whole life, I have always just made the decision. Like it didn't matter if it was good, bad, right, wrong. I was choosing. Like I never, ever, ever got paralyzed with a decision. And actually, I'll tell you one thing that was really cool, and then I'll circle back. But somebody had taught me that if you coin flip, when you have a decision to make, you go heads or tails, whatever it lands on, but in your body, this is how I trained my body, what you want it to land on when it's in the air. So you never are paralyzed, already. So that if it's heads, you're going to get disappointed, or if it's tails, this is what you really want. And so I used that in my life on several occasions to check in with my body. But, as the Enneagram talks about in an 8, I'm a body type. And so for me, my intuition is really strong, really strong. And I don't know why. I can't answer why, but I don't have fear of making the wrong choice. It's always a series of choices. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. And it has gotten me into trouble. Mostly it gets me into trouble in bigger, more. Like for me, I want bigger, more, bigger, more. The projects, in business and what I do, I just want more. And so that's the only time that I have found in doing all of the work on myself, that if I'm chasing a bigger or a more in way of dollar amount or contract or something that maybe I should just wait a few years and grow into, or maybe I should hold off because I don't have funds or whatever that is. In the early years, it didn't matter. I would figure it out. And it would take everything I had to figure it out. And I would get sick and I would have all of the symptoms of figuring it out and the stress of that. But truthfully, I never had fear of choosing because I just pivot. Like it was never a concern of that. So, in choosing that house, I did not know one single person in Arizona. And I knew that if I didn't do it now, I'd get stuck till after high school. So I knew that if I moved my kids during junior high, at least they would have enough time in that junior high school to make friends in high school. It was very clear that I wasn't just doing it selfishly for me, that I knew that this is what I needed, but I also knew the timing was really imperative for when I was doing it with my kids.
Mm. So where's your spirituality come into play with this?
Yeah, so I'm a big on prayer. I think that God is my bestie. I live that way. I talk to God all day, every day. I have very open-ended conversations. Some I'm sure he doesn't like as much as I like, like, hey, where are you at on this one, buddy? Like, was that my bad? Or are you teaching me something? I don't need a lesson on this one. Can you just, swoop in and fix it? But my conversations are very open. I know that I live on purpose. I am very, very much guided, and that I know that everything happens for a reason. And so for me, now that doesn't mean that my faith doesn't get shook all the time. Of course, it's like, hey, where's the tracking number for my husband? And where is this coming in? And when's my money all showing up? But I know that there's a reason for everything that's happening. And so that like settles me in some ways, and I'm a big, big believer spiritually and with God, that if you turn it over to God, he's going to provide it. However, you have to move your feet. You have to sit on the couch and go, hey, I really want a husband, but I'm not going out. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not going to date, or I'm not going to open the front door for anybody. You have to be open to what you're doing and do your part. Your partners in this life, and you have free agency and choice. And so, you turn it over to God, but you decide. I mean, really, I do really believe that it's your conviction to what you want. And I believe that if it's in your heart, and if it's something that you're convicted about, God will provide it. I just really believe that. And I live that way.
So we've learned a lot about you, and we can feel your energy. You've got really high energy. It's really contagious. We can feel what a strong will you have. And when you focus your attention on something, you're probably going to accomplish it and achieve it. And you have a lot of faith in God, the universe, and your own abilities to take those signs or those insights or that intuition and put it into action. So knowing all that, what is your purpose now, right where you are? You've had many years, few decades of life. You've got a lot more life to live. What's your purpose currently?
So mine is to impact. So, it's really interesting. I used to give and give and give and give, and realize that people are in the positions that they're in and the circumstances that they're in based on the choices that they make. And so for me, it was painful to try to help people, to, give money or time or coaching or any of the things if they didn't really choose it or want it. And I would do it to everyone. They didn't have a choice. It was me wanting to help. And so what I've learned over the years is that I really want to impact others so that they, and myself, but to have such a profound impact that they choose different, that the circumstances no longer dictate how and who they are. And so we all have within us who we are, what we stand for, what our beliefs are. And if you're convicted in it and you're strong in it, then you can choose differently. And, we all have backgrounds and circumstances that have happened. And we all live with a story around what happened to us. Baby of 6, I could say, I got lost in the shuffle. I was last. They didn't want me, all the things, right? And I've gone through all of those emotions and those things. But is that going to be my story in my 40s when I'm talking about my life and who I am and what I'm about? Is that going to be the hold on me that I was last? or that I wasn't wanted as much as I thought I needed, or emotionally connected to all my brothers and sisters and my parents and my friends and all of that. Now that's illogical to me.
Mm.
And yet lots and lots and lots of people live in this story and this belief that it's poor me, I'm a victim to my circumstances, and that I don't have any choice.
Mm.
And, I don't know why this meme was so powerful to me, but there's a meme, and it's a guy who is an alcoholic father and two sons. And one son is super, super successful, and the other son is a deadbeat, low life alcoholic, like the dad. And the meme, or like the whole quote is, "How come you're successful?" to the son, and he says, "Because I had an alcoholic father." And you ask the other one that's an alcoholic, "Why are you an alcoholic?" "Because I had an alcoholic father." It's choice. And that meme is so profoundly powerful if you get that.
Right.
We all come from circumstances and a way of life and what we know to be true, but there's always the power of choice. And so I think that is my 100% purpose, is to impact others to choose differently.
Perfect. This is a good time for a break. We're going to jump off, and we'll
Yep.
come back and hear how you truly impact your clients.
I love
We'll see you in a minute.
Thanks.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network. January 31st through April 4th.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back with Mary and myself. So you are now in Arizona. You moved from Southern California. You had a business there, and then so you went to college or university, had children.
Yeah.
got married, had children, and then business. Like, so let's hear about the work that you've done. You call yourself a serial entrepreneur. So that's an insight into the fact that there could be more than one business here.
There's a few. I seem to get bored pretty quickly. So it's a quick, like, oh, let's do this too. No, I started a construction company. And so I'm a general contractor and started in the business flipping homes, and was flipping homes in California and Texas, and then moved to Arizona and started flipping right away when I got here. And realized really quickly that I wanted to keep all my subcontractors busy, and so became a general contractor. At the same time, I opened a custom closet company and started that company pretty simultaneously with the contracting. And so I've done that, the two of those, for the last 10 years. And love it. I love that business. Talk about impacting. It's really impacting people's spaces and how they live and how they feel in their homes and in different rooms is really important to me. And then got certified, and I'm doing business coaching now. So and life coaching. But yeah, so the last 10 years has been in the construction industry.
Mm. And so, wow. So what's your current, as you've blended all that you've learned with Enneagram and having started and built and had great success in the businesses you've started, how has that morphed into coaching and supporting others in developing their business? Tell us a little bit about.
The biggest thing was about 5 years ago. I had this real aha that I'm a decent sized company, but a baby business really. And I was having a day, and I came in and I fired everyone in my whole organization. That's the 8 in me. Like, didn't really think about tomorrow and who was going to answer the phone. But I really had this moment of clarity that no matter how well you do or how little you do as the business owner, you don't have a lot of support in way of being able to talk about it. I felt like I was on a deserted island trying to learn everything I could to be able to run these businesses, but then also not having anyone at home. I'm single. And so it was very tough to figure out and navigate. And you can only Google so much about the how-tos and what to do and all of that. It actually hit me that I can Google all the how-tos, but I didn't really have an outlet in business to talk about what I was feeling. And that's not something that's really a big thought for an 8. We kind of bury the feelings and just plow through and keep going and keep going and keep going until you hit a wall and you go, oh my gosh, like I have all these feelings, and it turns into firing your entire office, instead of saying, oh, maybe you could do that different. Right. And so it really was like a light bulb to me that I wanted to be able to be that sounding board for business owners and small to medium-sized companies that are looking for their growth points and the motivation of why they're doing what they do. That's why I love the Enneagram so much, that it's not just a personality profiling. It really is the core of what it is we're doing it for and the why. We all can get up in the morning and be motivated, but what is that? And so many of us don't know. We don't know why we're doing the companies that we're in, or if we are in them, then I feel like it really, really comes down to that you're doing all the roles. In small businesses, you have 5 hats, 10 hats, 15 hats, and 9 of them you despise. Like you don't want to do it. You do everything you can to resist it, to not do it, to not be in the office doing paper. I hate doing paperwork. All I want to do is sell. I don't want to sit in the office and try to, input data or do invoicing, and invoicing makes me money, but I despise it. And so it's figuring that out, what's the motivation behind doing all these roles? Is it, all different reasons, but it's getting to that. And then also having a sounding board. So the life coaching mixed into the business coaching is really important to me, and really imperative for a business owner to have that next level of success. We all know that the how-tos, or it's easy to Google and figure it out, but it's really the motivation of the why. And so that's the biggest thing that I'm doing.
Can you give us an example of helping someone that's come to you wanting support in building their business or understanding them? Give us an example of how some of the things that you've shared with them that have helped them overcome some of their challenges and made sense of their business and who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. One that comes to mind just right off the top of my head is that I had a company that was a partner, and they weren't married. It was just a female-male partnership in the business. And she hired me asking to help be able to communicate with each other. And so being able to speak her own words and her own mind and get a result. She lived in this frustrated, he does this, and couldn't figure out a way to communicate so that the business was the end. It never is the problem between the people. It's what your goal is for the business. It's the motivation of what you want for the business. And so we really worked through a lot of that first, in being able to have a powerful enough voice, and being able to really be clear on what's stopping her from having a conversation with the partner to get what she wants. If you're a 50-50 partner and one partner's doing 90% of the work, and it's the work that they don't like, and 10% the other person, there's gonna be huge, massive conflict. And the conflict is what needs to get resolved. And it's really defining the roles, and then also defining communication style. When we communicate, we usually communicate and love both, but we usually communicate the way that we want to hear it. We want to feel it, all of that. But it has nothing to do with you if you're trying to get a result. And so the biggest thing is that it's not a manipulation of communication. It's communicating to a style the other person is going to understand. And so the more you deep dive into yourself going, oh, it's uncomfortable for me because if they said that to me, it would hurt my feelings. But this person just wants the truth, just wants the information so that they then can do something with it. It's really... And one of the examples I used is, I said, have you ever asked a kid to go get ice cream, but they're doing something else? And they're not going to jump up, get in the car if they have to put their shoes on and put a jacket on and do all these steps to then get in the car to go get an ice cream. And so if you chunk that back and you go, hey, this is where we're going to go. This toy is going to be here when you get back. You can still play with this. This is still an option when you come home, but put on your shoes. And by the way, if you're in business with somebody else, give them Velcro shoes. Like, make it where things are easier for you to get what you want and the results you want. So do all the things and put everything in place that makes it where it dumbs it down so that you get results. And so it doesn't have to be hard or confrontation or this push-pull. And this particular woman had a very hard time advocating for herself. All she wanted was to be able to leave at 4:00 on one day a week. I mean, that was really what the conflict was. That's the most ridiculous, in your head, that's the most ridiculous thing. You're an owner, get up and leave at 4:00 and go. Like, why is that such a conflict? Like, as an 8, that's not a conflict. You just do what you do. But, for her, it was really, and the second she did it, it really was so interesting because then the communication opened in every area of her life. And she was calling and texting saying, wow, I never knew. I didn't talk to my husband for weeks about feelings or about emotion or about what he does, not beating him up, just saying like, oh, I love you. I love that you do this, or I love that you do that. She wouldn't say any of it. And for fear of how it lands. And so, something as simple as that in partnerships or in working relationships or even employee to owner, I mean, you have to be able to use your words. But what I teach and what's learned is you have to communicate the way they're going to hear it. And then you take a few, it's like in raising kids. You never raise your kids the exact same way. One kid might absolutely just do everything that they're told, no matter what. They never have any pushback. You don't have to explain why. They just say, okay, and do it. And another kid has 750 questions, is never going to do what you tell them. They're very, very strong, opinionated, very strong-headed. And there's no negotiating that. Right. And so you train them differently, you teach them differently. And so being able to go into business that way, we get really attached to outcomes and we don't even have any idea what's coming. None of us can know what's going to actually happen. And so we make it up in our head that it's so much stronger or so significant that it's going to be a real, where the other owner in that was like, I had no idea. Go. I had no idea that this was even an issue or a problem or any of it. And it's really interesting. Their ROI on that year and doing the projects that they were doing doubled. Literally in like 6 months' time, they doubled their revenue. Just
what were the? Did you mind sharing their types, their Enneagram types?
I don't know. I would have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, definitely conflicted for sure.
Yeah. So communications, it sounds like if I was to ask you, what's the biggest challenge that your clients present with? And I'm not talking about just this couple, but does it boil down to communication, or you said another word, you said intentions, or is it more towards understanding the intentions of each, the owner or the co-workers or the employees? Or
so I think it really is customizable to people. I think that when I first got into business and in building, that I had a completely different set of issues within myself than 10 years later, dealing with the same businesses, but trying to figure things out. I think that we get wrapped up a lot of times and lose sight of why we started it in the first place. And so a lot of times, especially small businesses, you go into a business saying, let's just take a company that does pressure washing. And they start out pressure washing driveways for $100 a driveway and realize really quickly that if they were to add on pressure washing the house, that they could make $2,000 versus $100, right? I mean, I'm making up the numbers, but
right.
And then they start chasing the pressure washing the house, and they only get 1 or 2 of those a month, but they have 10 driveways or 100 driveways. It's really interesting. People get lost in chasing something that's not actually revenue, or chasing the money versus what their actual intention is for the business. And a lot of times you get wrapped up in the have-tos. All the owner does is solve problems all day long, but they got into the business because they love making furniture. And now they're not making furniture. They're fielding all of the problems. And so it's being really, really, really intentional in the way that you drive your motivation. I think that it's setting up times like, hey, I'm going to field the problems for 5 hours, but I'm going to make furniture for 3. And then I'm going to go home happy. Or like something that I did that I had to learn is that I had to do my office work in the morning, because I would go home so angry if I did it in the evening. Like I would be so mad that I had to sit there and input all these orders and do all the invoicing and do all this stuff for 2 hours and then go home. And I was like upset in life. Like it didn't feel good. I was selling more than I've ever sold before, but that feeling of finishing the day, having to do something I hated, extreme hate, that I didn't want to go home with that. So I flip-flopped it, and man, it changed everything. Now, I also hired somebody to do it. Like you learn real quick that you can get on TaskRabbit and have somebody do it for $20 an hour and never touch it again. And you go, oh, okay. Like you figure out the loopholes of joy. It does not bring me joy to sit on the computer in the office, no matter how many hours it is, no matter if it's 30 minutes and it's bringing in money or not. I don't feel joy. Now, that doesn't mean that you get to negate everything in your business and not do it, obviously. But if you can eliminate even this much of the stuff that's nagging you or that you have resistance to, and even flip-flopping it for a long time, it worked for me. Like it really worked, because I knew that if I finished this, I got to have a snack and go out in the field. You know, I mean, it was very much like a reward system, and that worked for a long time, you know.
So time management, it sounds like getting real clear on what you want. So I'm thinking sort of hacks for business owners, especially small business owners. Time management, clear on what your goal is, or what your intention is, good communications with your coworkers or the people you're working for. Is there anything else that would be fundamental?
So the biggest one, especially for salespeople, is that I think that we forget to have joy. Literally finding a song that you can rock out to and dance to and get fired up before your next appointment, or figuring out in the appointment a word that you're going to say that's going to make you laugh. So like, it's really interesting. I'll go to 4, 5, 6 appointments a day, and it's in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And I leave and go, there was no impact to that client. Yes, I did all the things that I did a good job in the sales process, but they don't know. I have no connection to them. I'm not going to remember their name tomorrow because I have 6 more tomorrow, you know? And so it's really being able to connect with the people that are in your life, realizing that that connection is going to lead to sales, and or that connection is going to impact your life, where there's joy in driving to an appointment, being with people, finding something that connects you while you're with them. Even if they never buy from me, I then remember that I had connection to their home or to them, or in a different way. And I think we can do that with everyone. I think we can find places in our life that we just insert, you know, and I do this a lot. I'll say, hey, to my friends, hey, give me 2 shower songs. So then I have their playlist within me, and I'll take a shower to their 2 songs. And it's like hilarious, you know, but then it connects me to somebody, you know. It's just finding little ways. I think often, when was the last time that you woke up in the morning, poured a cup of coffee, and enjoyed it?
This morning.
I love it. But I think a lot of people get up, get in the shower, hurry up, go in a drive-through to Starbucks and get a cup of coffee and rush to whatever they're going to do, you know, and the coffee they love. You know, so it's like just finding tiny little things that you can insert here to enjoy your life really makes huge impact.
Cool. Well, yeah. You've given a lot of insights for individuals to be able to bring into their daily lives, whether they're a business owner or not, to bring more joy and elevate that that
I
energy. Yeah. So I have a few closing questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask my producer, Michael, to put your contact information on the screen so that people know how to get in touch with you. They want to work with you, whether they're looking to get support with their business or getting support in their life in general, how to generate some more energy and enthusiasm for their life and their work.
Perfect.
So here's the questions. So I want you to finish this thought or this statement.
Okay.
I am.
Oh, I am powerful.
Yes, you are. You're an 8, you're powerful, and you're a serial entrepreneur. So I would say that's true. So how about this one? My vision is.
My vision is for people to be impacted when they come in contact with me.
Relationships are.
Everything. Everything. Relationships are everything in my life, with my kids, to my family, to my good friends, you, to anybody I come in contact with business. I think relationships are the reason we are on the planet.
I agree with you. My philosophy is.
Be better, do better.
Be better, do better. All right. So if you could sit with a sage, a master, someone, a guru, or maybe someone in the business world that you really look up to, what question would you ask them? What would you like to know?
Wow, that's an interesting one. I daydream about doing that, and in thinking about what I would ask, I think that it would just be how they connect to their life with everything that they do, you know, bringing it back into themselves and really knowing the innards of how they think and how they live. I think every once in a while I can get wrapped up in being so outward and wanting so much to impact others that I don't bring it back into me, what it's doing to impact me and how it fills my heart and my body, and that there's pure joy and love for my life and what I'm doing.
Beautiful. And my last question, you know, the song, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love. What else does the world need right now? As you look out at the world, as you're on social media, as you're selling things and being out there in the world, what do you think humanity needs right now?
People knowing what they stand for and the character that comes from deep understanding of who you are. So, yeah.
Beautiful, Mary. Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. Yeah, I'll be back with you in a minute. And everyone that's here watching, or maybe you're watching later on and listening or viewing this, I'm so glad that you joined us today. I hope the things that Mary shared and the things we discussed supports you on your growing edge, on what you're developing, on who you're becoming. And I look forward to our continued conversations here at the Growing Edge. And next week, I have friend and teacher Erica Teal as my guest. So peace and blessings to you wherever you are. And I'll see you next week here at the Growing Edge. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.